Hey guys, welcome back to our channel Tarung Seva with a new video series that is JavaScript. This is our introductory video about JavaScript, which is very much helpful for cbse students. Before starting the lesson, if you are new in our channel, then please subscribe it and press the bell icon to get the notification of new video. First of all, go through the outline of today's session that we will cover one by one. So first is introduction. Here we discuss what is JavaScript. Next is brief history. Here we discuss the history of JavaScript from the beginning. That is 1995 to 2018. Next is features. The important features of JavaScript will be discussed here. Next is advantages. Here we discuss why should we use JavaScript, what the benefits we can get from JavaScript. Next is the applications of JavaScript. And finally, how to set up JavaScript in our most popular browsers. Before starting JavaScript, I would like to give a background of JavaScript. So all we know, HTML is a programming language which is used to design web page. Simple designs such as background color, text color can be changed by the HTML tags. If you want more design, then you need to add CSS. We can design simple form with text field, button etc. by HTML tags. But HTML cannot validate data which is given by the user in the form. So what is the solution? And the solution is JavaScript. Now the question is how? JavaScript can check data of a particular field in the form, and also give pop-up message according to the data validation. For example, suppose someone enters digits in the name field, so JavaScript check this data and give pop-up message like you entered invalidate name. Because person's name do not contain digits. So, I hope one of the basic concept behind JavaScript is cleared. JavaScript is one of the most popular scripting language. Now the question is, what is scripting language? A scripting language is a programming language that is interpreted. Interpreted means there is no compilation steps. It is translated into machine code when the code is run. It is also designed to interact with user through web pages. We can design some action-based message box or confirmation box by JavaScript. This is the simple example of interaction with user. It is inbuilt in every popular web browsers. It is integrated with HTML code. We can put JavaScript code inside the HTML code with scripting tag. Let's move on to the history of JavaScript. JavaScript was developed in 1995 by Brendan Eich, at Netscape. Guys, do you know what is Netscape? Netscape was developed first web browser in the world. Actually, it is known as Netscape Navigator. JavaScript was first released with Netscape 2 early in 1996. It was initially called LiveScript, but was renamed JavaScript to capitalize the popularity of Sun Microsystems' Euro trademark S Java language. In November 1996, Netscape announced JavaScript to ECMA, that is European Computer Manufacturers Association, for consideration as an industry standard. In June 1997, ECMA International published the first edition of ECMA's specification. A year later, in 1998, some modifications were made and the second edition was released. The third edition of ECMA was released in 1999. This is the version most browsers were started using. Fifth edition of the ECMAScript standard was released in December 2009. And the last edition, which was released in 2018 and named ECMA 2018. So, till now we get a basic idea of JavaScript and a brief history about it. Next, move on to the features of JavaScript. The first features of JavaScript is browser support. Almost every browser accepts JavaScript as a scripting language. You need not install JavaScript in the browser, just enable it from settings, if it is disabled. Next feature is document object model. JavaScript has access to document object model or DOM of the browser. You can change the structure of web pages at a runtime. Now the question is, what is document object model? I will tell you briefly, later we will discuss about it in details. So, In document object model, we can represent everything as an object and it follows a tree structure with a root node which is document itself. I will make a separate video for document object model for better understanding. Next is the functional programming language. What is it? We can create function of our own for the specific task in JavaScript. This gives us one benefit, that is reuse of code. Next is support for object. JavaScript supports most of the object-oriented concepts like object handling, inheritance while being simple to learn and use. Next is the runtime environment. JavaScript typically relies upon a runtime environment to provide objects and methods by which scripts can interact with the outside world, that is users. So, that's all about the features of JavaScript. Next, move on to the advantages of JavaScript. The first advantage is dynamic web page. Normally web pages are static in nature. But we can change content of a web page during runtime through JavaScript. For example, suppose a web page takes your date of birth and print your age in the same web page. This is called dynamic web page. Change its content in runtimes. Next is the event handling. JavaScript can react to events. For example, consider the previous one. Suppose, we have a button to calculate age there, so when click on this button, it will show age of the given date of birth. Next is the data validation. We have already discussed data validation in the introduction part. Next is the create cookies. JavaScript can be used to create cookies. For example, a JavaScript can be used to store and retrieve information from the visitor computer. Next is the code organization and reuse. JavaScript supports the best practices for code organization, modularization, and reuse. JavaScript allows module-based programming, where we can create separate functions for specific task. That's all about the advantages of JavaScript. Next, move on to the applications of JavaScript. That means, where we can use JavaScript. The first one is developing multimedia applications. The users can use JavaScript to add multimedia elements. We can show, hide, change, resize images and create images rollovers through JavaScript. We can also add scroll bar for the text. Second one is dynamic web page. We have already discussed about dynamic web page. That is based on the user choice. JavaScript can generate page content in runtime. Next is the interactive web pages. JavaScript can do some processing of forms and can validate user input when the user submits the form. This process is known as data validation. Next one is game development. We can create game by JavaScript and HTML5. The game either may be in 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. Physics.js, Pixie.js are some JavaScript game engine which can help us to develop web game. Later I will show you how to develop a simple game through JavaScript and HTML. Next is the web server. We can create web server in your desktop by JavaScript. Node.js framework can help us to create web server. Last one is the mobile application. Using JavaScript, we can also build an application for mobile. The React Native is the widely used JavaScript framework for creating mobile applications. So, I hope the concept of JavaScript is cleared. Still, if you have any doubts, ask in the comment section. Now we shall move on to the browser setup of JavaScript for Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Mozilla Firefox. This is all about introduction of JavaScript. In case you are still left with a query, do not hesitate in adding your doubt to the comment section. We shall try to clear your doubts. If you like our video, then please share it and subscribe our channel Tarung Seva. Thank you.